Welcome to the BAM Sports Show.
I carefully place all of it in various trash cans around.
Any other headlines you guys are interested in tomorrow?
I'll poop in a urinal.
It's going to be a wet one.
He shoots, he scores, you suck.
Rick's wife is going to make him sleep in the bathroom tub tonight.
A dark horse candidate of where I may eventually want to end up living for good.
Welcome to a brand new sports show experience coming through your wavelengths. Let's get ready to have some fun. So sit back, crack open a drink, and let's talk some sports.
Woo! Welcome to the BAM Sports Show, minus the BAM. Tonight, joining myself, Rick Horn, along with Keith Carver and formerly Silent Dan, otherwise known as Leather Danny. He used some leather intuition to get himself back on the show with some audio tonight. How's it going tonight, fellas?
Pretty sweet, except I can barely hear you. It sounds like you're talking, but not on speakerphone. So I might have to go dig up my. Oh, actually, hold on a minute.
Hold on.
I got a Bluetooth thing right here.
Bluetooth thing.
There you go.
I had to go into my truck, but I forgot I got something.
That's a pretty fan. I love your fan, Danny. I know you can't hear me, but I love your fan.
A lot of dust up there. A lot of dust.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes, sir. So we are back. Lots of stuff to talk about tonight. Obviously,
You didn't see that my pants were up, did you?
Oh, ayo. So you're trying to tell me that the story coming out from the No Pun Intended Fantasy Football League's official tabloid wasn't true? About the constipated leather eunuchs?
Gross.
Now let's talk about tonight. Obviously, kind of the headliner here. A few different things. I feel like there's a few different headliners here. Definitely want to talk about the UFL, which is right around the corner. We've got the WWE Elimination Chamber, MLB spring training.
In like 6 hours.
Yeah, because it's over in Perth, right?
It's in Perth, Australia. It starts at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Good grief. Good
I will
grief.
not
That's
be watching
crazy.
live.
No, I couldn't imagine. So who are the I really haven't been following wrestling much. I know Danny's trying to get into it, but who are the headliners for the card?
So what the Elimination Chamber is, it's a giant steel cage that you can't escape. And there are 6 competitors total in it that you can't, that are 4 of them are locked in a pod, and they come in spread like within 5 minutes. Like there's 5-minute increments, and then somebody else is entered into the ring. And there's 2 matches. There's a men's and a women.
Okay.
The women's is actually kind of fun. I like it this year. So it's Blake's girl, Liv Morgan. He loves Liv Morgan. He would probably leave his wife for Liv Morgan. Maybe.
We're just kidding, Jess. He totally
just
would.
kidding, Jess. If you're watching, which I doubt you are. And then there is Tiffy Time, also known as Tiffany Stratton. Bianca Belair, who I don't want to win because I'm just sick of her hair. She's the one with a really long hair that she uses as a whip. And then there's my girl Becky, my girl Becky Lynch, who I desperately want. I think Becky is going to win. They've been billing her to face Rhea, who's the current champion for a while. And then who's the last competitor? Who am I missing? I can't remember who I'm missing. Who am I missing? You know who I'm missing, right? You totally don't know who I'm missing.
Let me see here.
And my phone is being stupid.
Here, I got you.
I had it pulled up.
I got you.
I had it pulled up.
The card. I have the card right here. Hang on just a second. Whoops.
Oh my god.
Before we start. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Here's the card right
Naomi.
here.
That's what I'm missing. Is Naomi.
Oh my god.
Oh my God! Why are you so loud? Stop yelling at me. So
You are quite
if you
loud.
hear my daughter yelling, I'm sorry. Her cousin is here. And then the up top.
Holy
you
shit!
got- oh my God!
Yeah, Danny,
I
your audio
finally
is
got
bad,
it.
buddy.
My audio is
Super
bad.
loud.
Really bad.
You're
I
All
think
right,
you-
hold on.
Yeah, don't use
I
your.
just-
Oh yeah.
Love Danny.
Oh man. Even as a even though we don't have silent Dan now, we've got someone using like a World War II
Get up
radio.
last week.
How's that?
And then that's better.
Better, but still not great.
You're not as loud.
Can you try to in the settings use like set your mic to be your phone's mic instead of your headphones mic?
Yeah, that's what I was trying. I just got to where I could hear you guys, so it took a lot of troubleshooting to get that far.
Yeah.
The mic. Okay, so the mic is.
While he's figuring that out, I'm going to mute him here for just a second.
Okay. And the
All right, so
men's,
Keith-
you got KO, Kevin Owens. I love Kevin
Mhm.
Owens. I love me some Kevin Owens. You got Booby Lashley, also known as Bobby. He's the big black strong guy.
I know who
You
that
got-
is. He was an MMA fighter for a little while.
Yeah, he was an MMA fighter for a while. Then you got Randy Orton, who you probably know.
Yep. Randy
Then you
Orton.
got Logan Paul. He's in the match.
Gross.
And then you got LA Knight. Yeah. Sorry, that's a shtick. And you got Drew McIntyre, who I think Drew is gonna win. The winner of this match goes on to face the current champion at WrestleMania for both matches.
Huh.
So both men's or women will go on to face the current champion at WrestleMania.
So of the matchups that are in the Elimination Chamber tomorrow, or I
Mhm.
guess really upcoming tomorrow morning, like bright and early tomorrow
Yes.
morning.
Uh-huh.
Of those matchups, which one are you most excited to see, and do you have any hot takes on who wins tomorrow?
I really think Drew is going to win this match, but it's the Elimination Chamber for the men is also going to set up other matches coming down the road. Either Logan Paul, who is the current United States champion, getting eliminated by Kevin Owens or LA Knight to set up a match at WrestleMania for the United States Championship.
Interesting.
Now, for the women, they've been
sound
setting up Becky. You sound much better, yes. They've been setting up Becky and
Okay.
Rhea for like
We'll go
what
like
feels like years.
Yeah.
But then there's Liv, who has the redemption arc because Liv was injured and lost time because of Rhea for 6 months. She broke her arm.
Okay.
But Rhea also has a match. Rhea is from Australia. She's Australian. That's my dog. So she has the match against Nia Jax, who Rhea's I think is gonna win that. She's not gonna make Rhea lose in her home country to Nia Jax.
No, I couldn't imagine. Is this the first event that they've had in Australia?
It is the first like premium live event they've had in Australia. They've done like other
Interesting.
shows, but not like big shows. This is the first
A big
show.
right. First premium event. Okay. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about the WWE, but I do know Perth is awesome. I visited there. Oh gosh, that had to have been 2014, 2015 or so. My first deployment, we'd stopped over there actually just outside of Fremantle, Australia. We docked out, and then I took a train over to visit Perth a couple of times. It was pretty cool. I enjoyed it.
Yep.
Danny,
Yep.
I know you've been trying to get into wrestling. Any takes on this Elimination Chamber event we got going on in the morning?
No, I didn't realize it was in the morning.
It's at 5 a.m.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm probably not going to be watching that one. It's a little early
No,
for me to be getting up.
I can even
It's one of those things that might just take a while for me to get invested in some of these characters, but it's so different from when I remember watching it when I was younger. I can't really hold it to that standard, and I'm trying not to. So
but that's definitely what's kind of holding me back a little bit from getting into it. Although I will say right now we're in kind of a sports drought, so that is if wrestling is on, especially when it's like not pay per view, but a main, I don't know what you call like a monthly thing. That's
The
that definitely gets my attention. And the other thing is MMA. So those two things are really kind of high on my radar right now. I'm trying to get into hockey a little bit, but that's so hard to just kind of be in and out of, because as soon as like you grab your phone, someone scores. Fuck! I like watch that thing for 20 minutes without blinking, and then as soon as you turn your head, it's like that could be the entire game right there. So trying a little bit. How are you guys doing with the? I mean, I don't want to deviate from the WWE. At some point, I want to know how you guys are doing with sports drought.
Yeah, I think it's a worthy topic to talk about for sure. So, I mean, for me, I'm not nearly as into it as I used to be, but I still kind of keep tabs on MMA with the UFC. Actually, just last weekend, there was a pretty decent card, UFC 298. Alexander Volkanovski got knocked out, lost the belt. That was huge. I was surprised to see one of my, I wouldn't say favorite, but like a fighter that I've always respected in Robert Whittaker, who used to be the champ there at middleweight, beat Paulo Costa, who at one point was, kind of considered to be a freak athlete and a title contender in his own right. Beat him at a decision. So for me, I guess filling that sports gap, between the Super Bowl and spring football coming up, I think the UFC and hockey are definitely my go-to. I mean, hockey, it's another one of those sports that the season's pretty long. They play a lot of games. So I feel like you can kind of tune in and out of that one. I think that my Blues are doing better than expected. Than I think a lot of people had them pegged to. Conversely, I'm so glad to see that the Chicago Blackhawks are literally the worst team in hockey right now.
Take it back.
So
take it back. They got Conor McGregor back like last week.
Say what?
So
what about McGregor?
Back. He came back last week. He scored 3 points in his first 2 games back. So that was good to see.
Yeah, I don't even know what the Kraken are doing right now. The last I heard, they were like around 500, and I haven't heard much since. So
the Seattle Kraken are sitting at 24 and 21. So they're just above 500. My Blues are sitting at 30 and 24, and the Chicago Blackhawks are sitting at a paltry 15 and 39.
Do you really want the Blackhawks to suck though? Because they already got a lot of picks coming up, so you're just gonna make their picks better, right?
I mean, but this is the same thing that we heard, like, Connor Bedard, like he's, which he's a great player.
Bears fan said.
Yeah,
I said it.
Man,
I can't get kicked out.
I know Blake is going to have some stuff to talk when he comes back. Blake, if you're watching, we love you, buddy.
But
what's Ryan doing? Oh, sorry, go on.
Ryan's gonna take a break for a while, I think. Right?
Okay,
but he'll be back. An MMA WWE tie-in on Monday Night Raw. You know how they're owned by the same company now, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever the heck that company's called. My head is blanking. Michael Chandler, a UFC fighter, was on Raw in the crowd, and he called out Conor McGregor during Raw.
I did see that. Which,
on Raw.
A lot of me has to wonder, Conor McGregor for the past, it feels like several years now, has kind of been the UFC's cash cow, the occasional cash cow. Where I think that when he went on his run, when he was winning title fights, I think that the cards just happened to fall for him at just the right time. When he won against, I think it was his second belt that he had won, but when he was the first champ, or whatever, the guy that he got his second belt from was far and away the weakest quote unquote champion of the UFC at the time, Eddie Alvarez. So I think that between that and his personality, he's a cash cow. He's the true definition of a prize fighter.
It's like Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey.
Yeah,
Rousey probably had more. I think Rousey probably had more talent than Lesnar. Lesnar, I mean, wasn't untalented, but he was just a specimen. He's so much of what he was able to do was. Well, I think it's coming out now that he was probably roiding up pretty hard, but he was also to be that size at 265 is pretty insane.
Yeah, cut weight to make 265.
Yeah,
which is nuts. Which is absolutely nuts. Yeah, no, and Ronda Rousey, like I regret so much that she kept that dumbass. I forget the guy's last name, but Edmund or something like that. This guy that she had in her corner that was just awful. Her
married boyfriend.
Right, exactly. The guy was a horrible. If she would have gotten a legitimate coach in her corner, not just a yes man and her best friend or whatever, but if she would have gotten a legitimate coach in her corner, I think the sky could have been the limits for that girl. I mean, she was. A lot of people are quick to cast her aside, because she didn't have a stand-up game whatsoever. But a lot of people forgot just the pure pedigree, of what an athlete she was. I mean, she was an Olympic judoka. Her mom was the first ever the first ever American women's judo champion.
Sure.
So just, and even in MMA, she was such a talented judoka that she just ran through, snapped the arm off of every one of her opponents' first 12 fights, especially when before the UFC had women, when Strike Force was essentially the pinnacle of where you could get in women's MMA. And she quite literally snapped Miesha Tate's arm.
Can you hear my wife?
Yeah.
Very faintly. But no, I think that the sky could have been the limits for Ronda Rousey had she had a legitimate striking coach.
I don't know. I kind of feel like she's, had a really, really good run. I mean, you think about how, it's probably a little longer than the average champion's run, who carries a belt. And the thing is, when there's enough tape on you, eventually your style gets figured out. You can't, her style of, because usually it's like your takedown in MMA has been wrestling the whole, for any given time. So for someone to come in as a serious, judo is my number one, I'm not striker, not wrestler, not jiu-jitsu. Judo is my is the base. That was different. But I think with enough tape and enough, enough fighters making the adjustments, I think, you get figured out. And I think that's what happened to her. I don't really, I don't know. And maybe it would be a different situation if her coaching was different, but I don't know. I still don't want to take away from Holly Holmes because that was like,
that was
just like
Amanda Nunes.
my all-time favorite, UFC fight. But going back to what we were talking about with just kind of cash cows, it doesn't seem like there's too many personalities out there at the moment. The closest guy I can think of is maybe Sean Strickland, and he just lost his belt in a split decision. So I have the ESPN Plus, and they show the UFC events like a month after when the next one's going on. Not a month, but like after the next one goes up. So like I'm like one UFC behind as they go on. So like the next month
I think
I'll see what
Sean O'Malley's probably another one that's starting to work his way into cash cow status.
Yeah, it's a name I know.
O'Malley.
And if I know the name, that means they're a household name because I don't.
Yeah. And
he's
the
got
one
like
other
the
thing
pink hair.
Well, yeah, the rainbow like colored hair. The one other thing I will say about Ronda Rousey is, say what you will about her lack of striking and her brutal losses to Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes. I think that in a lot of ways for women's MMA, the way that she put women's MMA on the map. She's a pioneer in that regard. I mean, yeah, sure. Like it doesn't mean that women's MMA didn't exist, but she brought women's MMA to the UFC. And in a lot of ways, she, in my opinion, and I think a lot of others, was a pioneer for women's MMA in similar fashion. And she brought a different element to the game in a similar fashion that Hoist Gracie did way back in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Nobody, back when like it was true mixed martial arts, you had like fighters of only like one discipline facing each other. You had like a boxer versus a wrestler, a kickboxer, you know, versus whatever. But nobody at that time really understood Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And he kind of brought that element into and really helped make mixed martial arts what it is today, because fighters had to adapt and add that, you know, kind of second element to their game. And I think in that regard, Ronda Rousey probably did a very similar thing, aside from just putting women's MMA on the map. I think that as far as, you know, helping fighters grow their game, she was very similar in that regard.
You know, and I feel like I 100% agree with you on that. You know, because she was the first household name female MMA star, but who I think was like brought the next step to MMA to me was Holly Holmes, because the first, like, you know, the Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey's a big part of, you know, the sell was sex appeal. I mean, just straight up, they're doing swimsuit model stuff. They're doing, you know, like Sports Illustrated. Like, they were just like, it was a big part of it was, you know, girls fighting. Yeah. And Holly Holmes, like, I love Holly Holmes, but she's, you know, not necessarily easy on the eyes. You know, Ronda Rousey was, you know, the pretty girl, so to speak. And when she won, you know, I think that turned it into not, these aren't pretty girls, you know, fighting. This is like
legit fighting.
This is legit. And, you know, men in particular were becoming fans of different fighters, not because of like, ooh, you know, because oh, Miesha Tate, it gets my heart palpitating. No, it's because like, no, that's the fighter I'm rooting for. That's the underdog that, you know, came in and like knocked the king out or knocked the queen down. So I think that really, I think changed the perspective a little bit. And I don't know, that's the way I like that one, because I think like her, I mean, her short rise was something that really turned, like, in addition to what Ronda Rousey did, kind of got women's MMA on the map more so.
I agree with that.
I mean, standing on the shoulders of Ronda Rousey. I'm not saying that she did more than Rousey, but I think that was, you know, a big step.
And I think another name that has kind of gotten forgotten in time, who I think maybe even more so. So I think Ronda took, I think, the torch from another fighter who I think, you know, kind of before Ronda Rousey, the big name in women's MMA was, well, really there were two, but one in particular that I think was really selling tickets, possibly because of, you know, the whole sex appeal thing, but was Gina Carano. Gina Carano was the
Was
Ronda
she
Rousey.
Before Rousey?
So she never fought in the UFC, but Gina Carano was an incredible fighter and athlete in her own right. But she was kind of the face of women's MMA before Ronda Rousey. She had an undefeated record, and finally she fought Chris Cyborg, you know, who everybody knows
we all know
as just a brutal athlete. But I was so disappointed in that fight because, like, clearly, just as with anybody not named Amanda Nunes, Chris Cyborg can pretty much ragdoll and overpower any girl that she fights. But in their fight, Gina was kind of, you know, towards the end of the first round, sure, like, you know, she was getting wailed on pretty good. But for the majority of that first round, she was surviving, kind of holding her own. And they stopped the fight with 1 second left in the first round, which pisses me off. Like there was literally 1 second left. She wasn't in any real danger, but they couldn't let it go into the second round like that. And she has not fought in MMA since then, which I'm super upset about because she was phenomenal to watch. But I think in many ways, as far as just making, I don't think that Ronda Rousey, her situation, bringing women's MMA to the UFC and eventually allowing it to grow to what it is today. I don't know that that's possible without Gina Carano doing her thing. I mean, Chris Cyborg, sure, but Chris Cyborg certainly did not have, she's not an attractive woman at all. Very sweet lady.
Chris Cyborg, I mean, but she was like juiced to the. Did you ever fight in the UFC? Because I know she was just absolutely. She did. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. In fact,
she was the UFC featherweight champion. The problem was that the UFC did not have a lot of featherweight fighters, so she didn't get to fight very often. But she ended up eventually getting her ass kicked by Amanda Nunes. But who I consider to be the best female fighter of all time. But I would love,
I agree.
I would love, because in that fight, I feel like, between Amanda Nunes and Chris Cyborg, I really think it was just going to be a matter of who landed the first big shot first. And then that one happened to be Amanda Nunes. I would absolutely pay to watch them fight again.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're both retired now, aren't they?
So no, Chris Cyborg still fights. She fights in Bellator.
Okay.
So, which is the UFC's biggest competitor.
Because last I heard, the first time I saw her, I'm like, that gal is juice.
Yeah.
So hard. And then she got busted, and I get it. And then I don't know, I was kind of shocked that I wasn't even sure she ever fought in the UFC. I just thought she just kind of did the Japanese circuits, like Strikeforce and other ones, just kind of avoid, the checks and all that.
Yeah, she did not have a good relationship with Dana White. And after she lost to Amanda Nunes, I think she got cut. But it wasn't a good relationship. And I think a lot of fighters, I feel for some of the fighters in the UFC, because I think that, especially ever since they made that deal with Reebok, it's been, it hasn't been as entertaining to watch. I used to love watching, it was such a small element, but the different fighters having different sponsors and stuff on their shorts,
for sure,
tap out and all this stuff and
protein,
right?
Science.
Everybody now just wears the same, different color, but it's Reebok. Everything is Reebok, So
no, I thought that was so trashy. And then what happened to Stitch, the cut man? Because there might have been a bunch of other stuff that happened in the background, and I definitely go back and forth with Dana White, but I think that was one of the sleaziest moves. One, doing that whole Reebok deal, and two, firing Stitch for his comment on Twitter, because he's like, man, I'm gonna have to find more jobs to do, because this my sponsorships pay or I get most of my paycheck from them. And then Dana White cut him, fine, work somewhere else, you're fired. So I don't know. I mean, I love what Dana White has done, turned what it is, but man, he's just, sometimes I'm just like, dude, you're just a sleazy piece of shit, man.
I feel the same way. There's certain things about Dana White that I really admire. Others that like that. He's made a lot of really sleazy moves, which is a shame. Yeah. It really is. It really is. Anyhow, aside from, so we know we have the WWE Elimination Chamber tomorrow at 5:00 in the morning Eastern time. So if you're awake that early, you feel like watching some wrestling, it'll be on
Peacock.
TV there.
Not a sponsor.
On Peacock. Okay. So that aside, we've got MLB spring training right around the corner. Yep.
Cubbies roughed up the White Sox today.
Yeah. That should be a lot of fun. I'm thinking about getting some tickets to go into the spring training games. Jupiter's not that far away from where I live.
Oh, hell yeah. You should do it.
Yeah.
Arizona's
I'm looking forward to the Dayton Dragons. I think it'd be a lot of fun, the minor league team. And then I might go to a city league team. I'll always be a Mariners fan, but I'm kind of upset at just how absolutely dormant their offseason has been.
Mhm.
You know, they just barely missed the playoffs last year. They made it the year before, and they still got a bunch of young talent and some stuff to move around. And anything they did were just these
Welcome to my life.
little moves that are just kind of lateral. You know, trading a 2 for like two, I don't know. They just seem so unaggressive or uninterested in, like, when Juan Soto was available, they did nothing. When Shohei Ohtani was available, they deliberately said from the beginning that we're not interested, and even trying to pursue this. Yeah, it's just like, God, these guys are just.
Pain, I feel your
It's
pain.
unfortunate.
There's
I mean, if it helps,
an
my
outfielder
team
that-
has gotten a lot of players, all of which are
40
over
plus.
the hill. Yeah, would have
Yeah.
been great, 5+ years ago. But
Yeah.
One of them was
what can you
great
do?
5 years ago for your team.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
I
But
just
what can you do?
want them-
I'm looking forward to it. Nevertheless, I think it should be a good
it'll be
time.
fun. I love baseball season.
Yeah,
The reason I
it
love
should be a
baseball
lot of
season is
fun.
like if I'm at home, I can always find probably something to watch.
Exactly.
sports-wise.
Exactly.
Yeah. See, what I like about baseball, and even a lot of baseball fans will still say like 162 games, that's too many. And I go back and forth, but for the most part, I disagree with that. I think 162 games is great. It's something because it's like when you, especially like during the day or whatever, like when you're at work and you can put a game on the radio, it's like, oh shit, this is cool. Or if you're like out fishing or doing something in the garage and it's like, oh, the game's on, I can just put this, and you don't have to be fully invested. You can go to a bar, have a conversation, and when you see that it's like there's 2 outs and the guy on third, like, oh, hold on, wait a minute, and you can kind of stop what you're doing a little bit, and you can do a lot of stuff while the game is going. A lot of people don't like to say that. Plus, after the rule change last year, baseball's been a lot more fun. Last year was the first time in, I think, maybe ever that I just watched a game at home that wasn't the Mariners or the Reds. It was just like, oh, there's a game on, I'm gonna watch it.
Right.
And I enjoyed it. It wasn't like not like football. I mean, it's a completely different dynamic, but I just had it on while I was doing work. So
Right.
I don't know. It's a different monster for sure. It's not something that you're always going to be, come home early, rush to your seat and throw the game on, but it's a comfort almost that it's always there. Just about every day there's like your team's going to be on. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. It should be a lot of fun having baseball back. I can think that means grilling season's right around the corner, firing up the grill, and just I'm looking forward to it. Although I will say I have enjoyed, it seems like by Florida standards, mind you, but I feel like this has been a pretty decent, like, I remember last year feeling like it was the cooler weather didn't last as long, whereas it felt like this one has been pretty legit. Like, we've had cooler to borderline cold weather for long enough that I'm looking forward to having a little bit warmer weather, be able to get out and grill and mow the lawn and all that good jazz. And so,
yeah, the Florida guys complaining about the cold weather.
Yes.
I'm not complaining whatsoever. In fact, like I say, like,
7 inches of
I tell
snow
my
a
wife,
week ago.
I tell my wife all the time, like, if I had it my way, I would have it for a majority of the year, kind of like, what the weather was up in Washington, somewhere between the neighborhood of, for the majority of the year, 40 to 60 degrees for the majority of the year. Just because, I don't know, I think part of that may be a nostalgia thing for me.
Okay.
Just living up there in Washington for the better part of 6 years. But also I feel like the majority of like my favorite clothes that I like to wear are more appropriate for that type of weather. But no, I'm not complaining whatsoever. I was more or less just saying, like, I was glad, like, last year it seemed like we didn't get a lot of those cooler days for very long. Whereas this year it was a little bit more consistent. So I was happy about that.
And I'm making fun of you, but I 100% agree with you. I feel like last year, well, at least where I'm at, like as soon as it got to September, we're getting like 40-degree weather, and it just lingered around until like May. And we had a few weeks that were like that just stayed below zero that year. But this year I think we had one day that was like in the negatives, and it was 60 today, in February. I'm a little disappointed because the last 2 years I've been here, we had one day in February that was 70. So we didn't get that. But it's like we're already kind of winter started late, like late October, almost November, and it seems like it's ending a little bit early. And I'm very happy about that.
Like here, Tuesday, it's supposed to be 74 degrees.
That
And
sounds
on Wednesday,
fantastic.
And then Wednesday, 33.
Yeah. It's 60 today. It's going to be 33 tomorrow and snow.
I love our weather. It's so much fun.
Welcome to the Midwest, boy.
It's like our weather is Florida because they can't get their shit together.
Right. But I'll tell you what about the Midwest.
Shit together just fine. What are you talking about?
About the Midwest, though, at least where I'm
Florida
at,
in general.
where I'm at, though, at least when you get the changing weather, it's like you get it for the whole day, though. What I hated about Washington, and I really do, Washington weather bugs the hell out of me because it's inconsistent, changes every 20 minutes, and then summer, like it's really intense for like 2 months, and then it's like September, it's like boom, back to just dark rain all the time. But
see, I felt like my experience was a little bit different. I felt like summers were and I've lived all over the country,
right.
But I felt like summertime in Washington, I felt like you really couldn't beat it. Like you had pretty consistently. I don't remember. I think I can count on one hand how many times it even hit 90 degrees up there. But for the most part, it stayed in like the 70s or so,
But
and
see,
the
something
sun
that
was out.
well, they keep going. I got something after you.
I was just going to say the sun was out like around, come up at like 4 a.m., didn't go down until like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And because it had been raining so much throughout the year, all the trees were just these big, giant, green, hulking. It was gorgeous. I absolutely loved it up there.
Okay, so some I like about summer out of Washington, like I'm in Ohio, is that when it's even like in the springtime, it's like you can go outside at night with a t-shirt. And to me, that is like the coolest experience because like in Washington State, there'd be like 1 or 2 days you could probably maybe do in the summer, probably not, maybe you could have done it, but you don't want to risk it, so you bring your hoodie anyway at nighttime. But just like at nighttime, be able to like it's summer, go to my house, walk to the bar in a t-shirt, and it's still like 70 degrees at night. That is like I feel like I'm on vacation. It's like something that like I had the experience before when I went to Florida once, and it was really cool. And now I get to do it like every summer. I actually really like humidity. I like it way better than dry heat. And I'm the only person I know who's like okay with humidity. So yeah, but like just being able to do stuff at night, like and the weather still being like pretty warm is like the coolest thing to me, weather-wise.
I don't know. I felt like maybe there was for me, maybe I'm just not remembering well, but I felt like summer times you could get away with t-shirts up there, save for like a couple of days here and there. But either way, no, there's certainly something. Oh yeah, at nighttime I was in t-shirts all the time at night up there. But then again, I like cooler weather. I like cooler
Not
weather.
me. I'll be in a hot tub and 102 degrees outside.
Gross. That was one thing about our time in California that was neat. We had there's a town up in the mountains called Big Bear, and we got there like just the perfect time where we didn't. There was just enough snow still on the ground up there, but it wasn't so bad that like they would require people to have chains on their tires. So we got to enjoy being up in the mountains and like enjoying like kind of that snowy scenery, but without the having to go with like chains and stuff like that. But we had like the Airbnb that we were at had like a big privacy fence in the backyard with a jacuzzi out there, and it was awesome.
So, but
Anyway.
I'm gonna try to stay on the line as long as possible. My jerky is done smoking, so I'm gonna be taking that out of the smoker as we talk.
Sure. Well,
Why don't
now
we
that
get to the
we're
UFL
on
so you
from
can declare your team?
yeah,
Give
I know.
another
Yeah,
game
we're gonna have to
before
finally
you
get the
go.
big reveal from Danny's team, and obviously we're gonna have to update this here pretty soon. But
Straight
I'm
shot,
looking
Danny.
very, very excited because here pretty soon we'll be talking about.
It's time for the BAM Sports Show Extreme XFL Recap.
XFL, let's ball out, baby!
Car is still the law.
Down here, we say caca goes in the toilet.
The fans say, give us our beer snake back and we'll stop throwing lemons.
No, so wait. I'm not doing it tonight because remember what I told you with my XFL gear?
You lied to us.
No, so I ordered my UFL gear
you sent it
for the team, and I sent it to Washington. So I got to get it back.
Oh, wow.
So we're waiting for that before the reveal. So you're gonna have to wait at least one more week.
No big deal, no big deal. And I'm very excited to say, obviously, it is the UFL now, not the XFL.
UFL, I know. I want to say XFL.
We're gonna have
Your
to
shirt
update
says
that.
XFL.
No one's gonna excuse it for USFL.
Yeah. We're gonna have to
Because we don't
update
have any
that
fans.
here pretty soon. That being said, today is a very special day. Part of why I'm wearing my other Battlehawks jersey now, which I'm gonna blow myself up here for a second. Got my number 13, even though he's not with the team anymore. But I got my Austin Kroll jersey. And but that aside, today in UFL or spring football history, to me, is a very, very special day. Want to give another huge shout out. I will be eternally grateful to our good buddy Blake, because today, 4 years ago, was the first ever St. Louis Battlehawks game in St. Louis. The place was absolutely raucous and amazing. You can see all those fans there. And it was just, I think we were finally able to prove that St. Louis is definitely a very worthy football town. So
You hear that, Chargers?
yeah. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool too, because I actually read an article. Now, it's unfortunate that we're not getting it this year, but it seems like they are really starting to get stuff together to upgrade the dome. I know this summer, just after the UFL season ends, they're finally getting new turf at the dome, which has been desperately, desperately needed for years now. It's the same carpet that the Rams used to play on. So it's definitely much needed. And I think I read another few articles about them talking about a proposed plan to basically give the dome an even bigger facelift for future UFL seasons to come there for the Battlehawks.
Maybe some better parking.
Very sweet.
Yeah, I mean that's true. Or just take an Uber, like me and my brother did.
Fuck you.
But anyway, no, it's. I think that's pretty neat, and I'm almost wondering. I mean, you figure they won that 700 or whatever it was, $790 million settlement against the Rams. What was it, just a year or two ago? So I gotta believe that some of the money that they got from that settlement is being used, certainly to upgrade the turf there at the dome, but any of these future plans that they have to potentially upgrade the dome there in St. Louis. Certainly a good chunk of that money has to be coming from the settlement.
You'd think.
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah. So I know the Superdome isn't a world-class stadium by any means, but the fact that all these stadiums are $5 billion now, and the Superdome was made for under $85 million.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty intense that the new stadiums cost how many times is that? 10 times what the Superdome costs.
Yeah, they're in New Orleans. Yet it's a It's an iconic place for sure.
Right. I'm just saying. I don't know. I feel like they should be able to upgrade the St. Louis's dome for $100 million, right?
Yeah, I feel like they easily could. I definitely feel like, and they've got the money for it now. So it could definitely be very interesting. To be honest, like whenever I went 4 years ago today, I don't think the stadium was in that bad a shape. Like to me, it seemed like a fine facility. It definitely needed some upgrades, you know.
Yeah, it's not that bad. I went there for a concert. I didn't go there. I obviously didn't make it in for the game, but I went there for a concert and it was fine.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. Obviously, I think that they could use a bigger, well, I would say a jumbotron or a bigger jumbotron. And maybe upgrade the seats that are in there. I think the seats were pretty dated. I mean, they weren't in bad shape by any means. They're just outdated seats. Terrible cup holders. But other than that, I thought the building in and of itself, when you see it in person, the building is in great shape. It just needs a little bit of a facelift. That's all. I think. Hell, even some better lighting, a bigger jumbotron. They're already replacing the turf in there, which I think is a huge step in the right direction. But anyway, enough about just the Battlehawks, although obviously the majority of us on the show, that is obviously kind of the thing that we are most excited about with the UFL. But that being said, I did want to talk a little bit about the schedule coming up. I'm not sure if you guys have had a chance to see any of the UFL rosters, but this is what we have for our first 2 weeks of the season here in the UFL. Obviously, the season kicking off with the very first game. You've got the USFL champions versus the XFL champions from last year between the Arlington Renegades of the XFL. And for those who don't know, I know we've talked about it on the show a few times, but the USFL and the XFL were two separate leagues last year. They have now combined and merged to make a singular league, the United Football League, the UFL, with two different conferences, one of which being the XFL conference and the other being the UFL conference. And I think, at first I was a little bit disappointed in it, but what they did was, and I thought that it was a bad move that they got, instead of, taking every single team from both leagues, they just took 4 teams from each league. And, well, although I know like the Houston Roughnecks were an XFL team last year, but I think that was more just a joint Houston agreement because the USFL had a Houston team. So I think that they're using the roster for the most part from the USFL Houston team, but just using the XFL branding. Although that Houston Roughnecks team now is in the USFL conference. But with that being said, I was reading some comments on some of the UFL fan pages, and I think they actually brought up a hell of a point. I think that by them just keeping it to 8 teams for now, but combining forces into one league, you really kind of, for lack of a better term, you're consolidating all of the talent, all of the best players from both leagues into an 8-team pool rather than a 16-team pool. And I think that that's actually probably for the better, because now you really truly are getting the best of the best spring football players, right? By keeping it 8 teams. And I think that for now, hopefully they do end up expanding and bringing some of these other teams back. But the more I think about it, for now, I think that 8 teams is actually probably a smart move for the product that we hope to see on the field. But with that being said, we've got, like I said, the very first game kicking off, the first one there on your screen on the left-hand side. The champions from both leagues last year, between the Arlington Renegades and the Arlington Renegades versus the Birmingham Stallions. Kicking off there at Arlington at Choctaw Stadium, former home of the Texas Rangers. What are you guys' thoughts? What do you have for that very first game there?
Well, I haven't seen the roster yet, but I think talent-wise, if anything was similar to the game for the teams last year, I'd have to go with the Stallions. Going back to what you're saying,
they don't have their
with
quarterback.
With the team, like merging the teams, and I do think it's a good point. You're talking about consolidating the talent. You're taking the best of 16 teams and putting them into 8 teams. But my only issue is that, I feel like the only one that had any real fan base was the XFL, and you kind of got rid of half the fan base. Hint, hint. Me being one of them. In order to bring teams that had no fan base, because the only team that had could let any of their fans come watch were the Stallions for the most part. So, people like fans of the Michigan. There are no fans of the Michigan Panthers because no one. They never came to Michigan before. They never played there. No one on the team has ever probably set foot in Michigan.
I'll push back on that a little bit. I'll give them credit where credit is due because I was looking back through the chat, like just to make sure I'm not being biased here.
Yeah.
And I did remember commenting. I did find a few messages on the chat where I didn't really tune into any of the USFL games, but I did see on a few instances, where I'd commented like, "Oh, there's actually decent attendance at the Memphis game today and the Michigan Panthers game." Like they had, I think, of the teams that they kept. Certainly the level of fan attendance is nowhere near what the XFL had, especially in St. Louis. I think St. Louis still dwarfs the entire rest of the league in that regard. But for spring football, I had found a few instances in the chat where I had, at least given some props to the fans that did show up at the other USFL games other than just the Stallions. When they finally broke away from, playing all their games exclusively there in Birmingham for every single team. When they started moving out to, they had like basically 2 teams per stadium. But like the Memphis had some solid attendance. The Michigan Panthers, not nearly as good, but still decent. So I think of the USFL teams that they did keep, I think that they picked the ones that, are going to have, they were the better fan bases of the USFL. And I think with the Houston Roughnecks branding, and them being in the USFL conference, now you're kind of consolidating both fan bases into that one team. So I think it was actually, I didn't realize it at the time, but I think it was actually a decent chess move on their part. But anyway, that being said, no, I think for that game, what Luis Perez did for the Arlington Renegades last year, coming from, what was it? They were like 4-6 or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And entered the playoffs as like a pseudo wild card team. That being said, as magical of a run as it was, this is now what the Stallions, are they back-to-back or 3-time champions, something like that?
Back-to-back,
they've got a lot of consistency on that roster. A lot of the players from those championship teams are back with the Stallions, so
their quarterback isn't though.
Oh no?
No, McDonough.
Okay.
He's not with the Birmingham Stallions. He's a Packer.
Okay. Who's
they signed Matt Corral.
Matt Corral, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Matt Corral. So let me just taking a look at the roster here for the Birmingham Stallions on the UFL website.
Yeah,
let's take a look here.
McDonough is still the Packers practice squad QB.
I do not like the layout of how they have the rosters on here. On the UFL.
I will
website.
say, I'm also pretty excited when we get our fantasy football league going. Like, the way it's set up, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
How are we coming along on that, by the way?
I have to go back to the website that was hosting it because the website wasn't set up yet. They were gonna it was supposed to be a week later. It should be up by now. And I talked to a couple other guys on Reddit. A few people thought like my league idea was stupid. A couple other people thought it was really awesome, and they're like, "I want to do it." And then someone sent me. There's I got 2 links to like a fantasy football site that ones I haven't heard of. One was the one I already signed up for, and then someone else brought up. I forget if it was ESPN, but basically a way around where you had to tweak a few things, but you could potentially do the same thing. Or if anything comes down to it, we could just do like the old school way and just paper and pen and write everything down if we absolutely have to. We should avoid doing that, but it's if we have to, we have to. I think it'd be all right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree. But no, so I think Keith, are you picking the Stallions for this one, or you got the Renegades?
I want to pick the Renegades because I want to be an XFL homer, but it's probably the Stallions.
If my phone dies, it's on the charger. But even on the charger, for whatever reason, this is like draining so much battery. It's still like
no worries,
dropping down. So I got 2% left. So
not a problem. We'll try and cruise through the rest of this here. So up next, we've got the St. Louis Battlehawks going to Ford Field to take on the Michigan Panthers.
I'm sorry, Michigan, that you got to lose.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm actually very excited about that game because I will tell you what, there's a guy on that UFL fan page there on Facebook that he and I have kind of had some colorful exchange of words, shall we say. A lot of colorful exchange of words. So I'm excited that this is our first game because I really feel, and I'm not just trying to be a homer here, but you look at the roster for the Battlehawks. It seems like they have just put together a who's who list of players that were all league talent in the XFL last year. We've got 4 out of the 5 top receivers from last year. We got our quarterback, who was obviously the MVP. We just signed another all XFL offensive lineman. We got the defensive player of the year from last year. I think that St. Louis is good, not only because of the fact that, we have the biggest fan base, but I think because of the names that are on our roster, I think that we're going to be the team to beat. And I think that starts with Michigan. And aside from just being a homer, I really truly do think that the Battlehawks will win that game relatively easily.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. All right. So then up next, we've got Jordan Teamu returning with the DC Defenders, taking on the San Antonio Brahmas there at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. Trying to look over the Brahmas roster here because I know they actually did bring in a quarterback as well. Let me take a look at their quarterbacks on their roster. So, this is actually pretty interesting. So one of their quarterbacks last year, ironically, Quentin Dormady, who I am shocked that he didn't start for the Orlando Guardians the entirety of the year last year, because they finally, when they made him the starter, they gave the Orlando Guardians their only win of the season, ironically enough, against these very same DC Defenders. And now they've got a new coach in Wade Phillips. There out is Hines Ward and in is Wade Phillips. It should be exciting. I think that San Antonio last year, we were talking about being another potential crown jewel for the then XFL in terms of fan presence. So I think them having, I love Hines Ward, but them having an actual coach with literally over 50 years of coaching experience, and them having Quentin Dormady, who showed a hell of a lot of promise at the tail end of last year. I think that's a pretty solid move. That being said, a lot of continuity I was looking over the DC Defenders roster because they're obviously going to be a big rival of the St. Louis Battlehawks, and they have a lot of continuity on their roster. They've still got Abram Smith, who ran all over us last year. They've still got Jordan Teamu. So a lot of continuity there with the DC Defenders roster. They still have the same head coach. I think that as much as I would love to root for San Antonio, I think that the DC Defenders take that one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Defenders too. I like Teamu too much for Wade Phillips is a huge upgrade from Hines Ward, but coaches don't play the game. The players do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, defenders on there too. I don't know if anything. Let's see if home field advantage means anything yet. And you have to remember too, it's still spring training, or it's not spring training, preseason for every team. So, whatever the potential is for every team, it's probably not going to be in the first game. It'll probably be like, game 3 or 4 before you really start seeing the identity of all the teams. So some of these teams that are going to start out really, really hot are going to get figured out, or it's, they're going to.
I think that's another thing
film out there.
Right. And I think that's another reason why I would give this to the defenders is they at least have familiarity with each other. All the players just showed up to training camp for the UFL, I believe, yesterday. So you have continuity there. While in San Antonio, you've got a new coach, a new quarterback, a new scheme. So it's going to be interesting to watch. And then finally, the final game of week 1. The Memphis Showboats taking on this is the only, I believe, this is the only division rival game of the week between the Memphis Showboats and the Houston Roughnecks. They're at Rice Stadium in Houston, Texas.
Aren't the defenders?
I really don't. Huh?
DC and San Antonio.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So we've got we've got 2 interconference games and then 2 division games. My mistake on that. Yeah. So the final. So we've got 2 interconference games, an XFL conference game, and a USFL conference game. The USFL conference game being the Memphis Showboats taking on the Houston Roughnecks there at Rice Stadium in Houston, Texas. I got to be honest, I really don't know who to pick here for this one.
I'm going to go Showboats on this one.
Drew it. I'll go with the home team.
You're going to go with You're going to go with the Houston Roughnecks.
The home team, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm going Showboats.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah,
based on
it's because it's your team, isn't it? That's your team. I figured it out.
We'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, let's take a look at the roster here for the Houston Roughnecks. I'm not even sure. Just trying to see if I recognize any of these names on here. No, I think, like I said, this was all mainly leftovers of the Houston Gamblers team from last year.
I don't know any of you.
So they've only got 2 quarterbacks on the roster. One of them being, and I'm probably going to butcher this name, but Jarrett Garantano from Washington State and Nolan Henderson from Delaware State. I don't recognize any of those names whatsoever. So that being said, then let's take a look at the Memphis Showboats. I think they of the USFL teams, I think, well, aside from the Roughnecks, I still really like their branding, but I like the Showboats, their branding.
They're pretty cool. So I also like Memphis too. I like Tennessee.
They've got I know that, though I don't know a ton about the USFL players from last year, one name that I saw pretty consistently popping up was actually I'm not sure if he played with the Showboats from last year, but quarterback Case Cookus for the Memphis Showboats. In USFL circles, I did see his name pop up quite a bit. So I think just based on he's the only player I recognize and that I saw any buzz about, I guess I'll take the Showboats here in week 1 to round out the first week of the UFL season.
Picking things out a month out.
Yeah, obviously, like there's still a lot.
The night before,
there's still a lot to happen. These are very, very early predictions. We won't even get into it.
Can we do predictions again when we're like a day away?
Oh, absolutely. Like obviously, training camp is underway right now. So this is more just a very, very, very early look at the UFL. I'm sure we'll give our picks again, as things are going to happen in spring training. We'll probably have an injury or 2 that'll pop up that'll surprise us. But I think that it should be a lot of fun nevertheless. Is there anything in particular about the UFL that you were looking most forward to, whether it's A rule change. I know the probably the big thing, especially for us St. Louis fans, is the playoffs. The rules for the playoffs. We're not going to get screwed out of the playoffs because of a tiebreaker.
Sorry.
So, but what things are you looking most forward to with regards to the UFL?
Fantasy football is my big thing. I'm excited for.
I
might do a little bit. I've never done a single bit of like sports gambling before. I might do it with the XFL just to, put a little interest in the game. But yeah, those are the two things I'm kind of excited about.
He said XFL, so whoever.
Sorry.
An XFL team,
yeah,
he's got an XFL team. It's not one of the USFL teams, so we can rule out the Houston Roughnecks too. So his team is either the San Antonio Brahmas, the DC Defenders, or the St. Louis Battlehawks.
I don't know where you're getting that from, but
because you said XFL.
Because you just said
XFL. I keep saying XFL for everything. USFL or UFL.
Okay,
that's gonna get some good news.
Can you at least confirm whether your team is an XFL team or a USFL team?
No.
Damn. Okay, I tried. I know Keith for a little bit was going to go for the San Antonio Brahmas. He ended up rising up and becoming a Battlehawks fan.
I jumped off.
Now I'm looking forward to it. I like that they kept much of the same rules from the XFL. You still have basically the same concept, although the yardage change between, having two teams in the fourth quarter who either the game is tied or if you're behind. Rather than doing a kickoff or an onside kick, you can retain possession by running a play. Last year it was 4th and 15. Now it's 4th and 12, I believe, from your own 20 or 25-yard line. I like that they kept that. I like that they kept the extra points post touchdown. I think
that's a great rule.
It remains to be seen, but I really hope that I'm glad that they kept that. I'm also really hoping that they keep the transparency that they did from last year with the XFL. That was some of the most compelling. It made it a lot of fun to watch. A lot of fun to watch. And
I was gonna say
overall, go ahead.
I was gonna sorry, I keep cutting you off. My complaint last year with the refs was when they were letting plays go. And then you would hear them talk to each other, and they're both like, I don't know. And then go to the replay, and, they just, XFL at the time just didn't have enough, cameras around to get, every angle. You had, 2 angles, and so it's we just go with the call. Well, they let the play go, so because they didn't want to, stop, say if there's a fumble recovery or something, just let it go. And so the call stands because no one was watching and let the play go. And so, and part of that might just be, looking inside the kitchen. Some of the things that might just be how it always is. And you probably didn't want to know that's how it actually is. And you lose confidence. But, I don't know. I hope that kind of, we can get more camera angles and get them more confident. And then, if the refs can keep a better eye on the stuff, and even if it's kind of a close play, stopping the play might be safer than letting the play just go when you didn't see what happened. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I mean that very well may be a lessons learned thing from last year that they try to kind of capitalize on and improve. But that kind of remains to be seen. Nevertheless, I'm very, very excited. I'm probably a dork for saying this, but I've actually been looking more forward to this than I was NFL or college. And I know I'm probably part of a very, very, very small minority that says that. But I think part of it for me too is just I'm happy that St. Louis has a team. I love our fan base. Just looking forward to it, man. Looking very, very forward to it. Anyway, that just about does it here for us tonight at the BAM Sports Show. It's been fun, fellas. Looking forward to the UFL coming up. Any other sports things that you guys are looking forward to here within the next week or so?
Steve Kerr got paid today.
What's that, Keith?
Steve Kerr got paid today. He's now the most
nice.
highest paid NBA coach.
Damn.
He got a 2-year, $35 million contract extension.
Okay. Speaking of contract extensions, I saw a thing out there that it's possible that Dak Prescott resets the quarterback market with a potential $60 million deal. That $60 million a year deal. That seems
a year.
Did you see that they raised the salary cap in the NFL by $30 million? $30 million.
It's all going to Dak.
Yeah. That would be the stupidest thing they could ever do. And I'm not even just talking trash because, I'm a Cowboys hater, but draft if you're going to do that, draft a quarterback, man. Like, he's not worth it. We've seen time and time again that this guy can't get it done in the postseason. So save your money, go build your team elsewhere. Right. Go build the rest of your roster, and hell, use it on a better coach.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Cheeseburger McCarthy.
He's got a street named after him in Green Bay.
That's insane. That is insane. Anyway, that's all the time we have for tonight, fellas. If you like the show, be sure you hit that like button and hit that subscribe button down in the bottom corner. Be a friend, tell a friend. We'll see you guys next week. Danny's got his beef jerky there. No longer. Tonight we were very glad to not have Silent Dan here with us. Luckily, Danny is on the show. And it's been real, fellas. We will catch you next week. Peace.
I heard that, Danny.